Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other, and today's episode is Death Note Part 2, Episode 31, Transfer. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happens in the episode. So in this episode, the attack that began at the end of the last episode is ongoing, but Nier is fully prepared for this. He decides to release L's fortune in cash on the rioters attacking his building, which completely distracts them, of course. And then he, alongside all of his people, put on riot gear with the helmets and body armor and exit out of the building, so there is no chance for Misa to be able to see Nier's name in order to kill him, because his face and the face of all of his cohorts are covered. This, of course, frustrates L, and then once Nier is established in his new location, he basically calls and says, "Hey, I think Kira is among you. In fact, I think it's the second L. All of you task members, you've got my number. Call me if you agree." And Aizawa, who had started to suspect Light in the last episode, does take him up on that offer, and he does phone Nier and gives him a rundown of what L did to basically exonerate Light and Misa. But he also doesn't want to give Nier too much information, such as Light and Misa's names. He then returns to the task force headquarters and basically comes up to Light and says, "You know what? I want to investigate you again. I'm going to go search your house." And Light goes, "Sure, go ahead." Aizawa and Mogi go to Light's house where they meet Misa, and they search the apartment, can't find the Death Note, and it is revealed through Light's thoughts that he's had Misa give up her Death Note and sent it in the mail to Mikami Teru, who is a prosecutor who worships Kira as his god, and so we find out that the Death Note is in his hand. So when Kira's Kingdom airs on TV and Demagawa has gone too far and started making choices of his own instead of following Kira's orders, Mikami gets rid of Demagawa, and since both Misa and Light are under observation at the time, it doesn't fully exonerate them, but it does help to ease the suspicion, and Light talks about how he had chosen Mikami, and he feels like Mikami is able to make moves without needing to be supervised fully by Light. So now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, we'll now rank this episode on our mostly objective ranking list using set values followed by our personal ranking list. So to start with, we have our single arc supporting character introduction, which is Teru Mikami, who is somebody that is a worshiper of Kira, who during an event of some sort filled out a questionnaire, and he got all the questions right, which is why Light chose him to be the one he sends the notebook to. And his first act as Kira is to get rid of Demagawa, who is kind of going off script and doing his own thing, fueled by his own greed. And this, of course, so him getting rid of Demagawa, of course, is the first step that he makes, and Light approves in his thoughts at the end of the episode. Anyways, he's worth 1 point because he is a supporting character that only shows up in part 2. We then have our multi-arc supporting character development, which is that Aizawa phones Nier and gives him all of the details, etc., and that's worth 3 points. Worth 2 points also is Nier's deduction of Light's identity, and that, of course, is a single arc main character's development. And then I did give 1 negative for character regression, and that's Light. So, to be honest, even from like the first couple episodes, I did think that Light wasn't as smart as he liked to think he was. I mean, there were so many ways he could have moved Elle's suspicion elsewhere. Like once Elle deduced that he was a student, he could have continued following the student pattern, and then the next year made it look like he'd gotten a job or something to make it look like he was older than he was. Maybe they would have thought he graduated, he went into part-time work, he wasn't still in school, or maybe they would have thought he was like a university or college student, not a high school student, and therefore maybe now is in the workplace and like 3 to 4 years older than Light is. He could have done so many different things to put them off the trail. Instead, he like kept drawing their attention to him because he liked the idea of fighting Elle in like this game of cat and mouse. And I feel like this also shows a bit of like a character regression in that Light sets up this whole thing with rioters, and what, he expects Nier to just like walk out completely unprotected into the midst of rioters? Like, at several points in part one, the police responded to Kira in riot gear that covered their faces. Why would he think that Nier, who is working with an official organization, like why would he think he wouldn't use that same technique? Like he didn't even anticipate that, and then he's like, oh no, Nier was ready, and it's like, no shit. He's going against Kira. And there's already public records of other confrontations that have been done against Kira where they have used riot gear to hide their identity. So why would you think he wouldn't? And he's supposed to be a genius. And I feel like in part two, he doesn't do what he's supposed to do. I think when Elle died, he took half of Light's brain with him. And like now Light is basically doomed to die. Like I feel like because part two is Kira's demise, they've dumbed him down quite a bit. And this is yet another example of that, by him not anticipating that Nier would have a way to get out of the building or cover his face when he was very well funded and knows what he's up against with being up against Kira, who needs a name and a face to kill, which pretty much is common knowledge at this point in the series. So, yeah, I thought that was stupid of Light, and that is a regression of a supposedly smart character. So, -1, and that leaves us with 5 out of 10 for this episode. So this brings our part 2 ranking so far in our mostly objective ranking to in first, Justice, Father. This episode comes in third, Transfer, Abduction, and then in last so far is Impatience. So my personal ranking for this episode also wasn't necessarily the strongest. As I mentioned on the mostly objective ranking, I just don't know what happened to Light. Half his brain cells must have died when Elle did. I swear it. Elle took a lot from him, it's like, okay, I defeated Elle, I've achieved a purpose of some sort. That's it, that's all. Come kill me now. Like, he just isn't living up to what he was built up to be in part one. And even in part one, like, he had his flaws, he made his mistakes, he'd made stupid decisions to lure Elle in and give himself away simply because he wanted the game of cat and mouse. Now the game of cat and mouse was over. He grew complacent, he grew dumb, and it's showing in part two. And I've said it before, I'm not a big fan of part two. I think the series should have ended with Elle's death, and I stand by it. Still not a fan. I did like his move with like Mikami. Um, I don't really know why he even contracted someone like Demigao in the first place, especially since he very quickly seems to not need Demigao anymore. Again, with the riot gear, not anticipating that. Really stupid because on multiple occasions in part one, the Japanese police used riot gear to get around Kira and protect their identity so that they wouldn't die when trying to stop Kira from achieving something at like a television station, etc. Or in the office buildings or so on and so forth. Like basically whenever they were trying to confront one of Kira's designs, they used riot gear to hide their face, and why he would think Nier wouldn't have that, I genuinely do not know. I genuinely do not know. And I just think he was dumb. It was a dumb plan to start with, sending Demigao there. It was dumb plan to not anticipate riot gear. It was a dumb Like, the only thing he did that was intelligent was recruit Mikami, and even that, we don't know how it will turn out because honestly, like I said, I haven't watched this since I was like in early double digits, and it was on cable because I have never rewatched part two because I just remember it being so lackluster, and I am being proven correct that it is lackluster. So I don't even know what happens with Mikami, but I am sure it's probably not going to turn out as good as he thought it would because this is part two and nothing is as good as part one, unfortunately. And now that my little mini rant is over, it is now time to give you the score of 3 out of 10. I thought giving Misa's note to Mikami was smart, especially as he anticipated that some of his own would try to investigate him after what Nier was saying before. But other than that, everything else he did was dumb. So, anyways, that brings our personal ranking list to in first, Father, Justice. This episode is also 3 here, Transfer, Abduction, and then Impatience is last. Well, that's now bringing us to our series ranking so far. Part 1 on the mostly objective ended with a score of 70.77%, and Part 2 has 20 points out of 110. On the personal ranking side, Part 1 ended with a score of 60.38%, and Part 2 currently has a score also of 20 out of 10. 110, sorry. So with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Death Note Part 2, Episode 31 Transfer. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.